When did you realize your family had been planning this for years? I found the first photograph on a Thursday afternoon while searching for my social security card in my father's study. The image showed a dark-haired boy sitting on a man's shoulders, both grinning at the camera. The child wore a baseball jersey with number 12. The man had my father's exact posture, but younger, less worn. I flipped the photo over. Michael, age 6, written in faded black ink. My name is Michael. I'm an only child, but I'd never seen this photograph before, never owned that jersey. And the boy in the picture had features I didn't recognize from any childhood photos I'd seen. My hands started shaking as I pulled out more photos from the same envelope. Different locations, different ages, but always the same dark-haired child. Camping trip at age 4, first day of school at 7, little league game at 9. None of them were me. I have lighter brown hair, always have. My childhood photos show a completely different face, different build, different everything. Yet someone had carefully labeled each image with my name and corresponding ages. The dates written on the backs would have made me 13 years old in the most recent photo, taken just 3 years ago, when I was definitely not wherever that picture was taken. The office door opened behind me. My father stood in the doorway, his briefcase still in hand, his expression shifting from surprise to something darker as he saw the photographs scattered across his desk. For 3 seconds, we just stared at each other. Then he carefully closed the door, set down his briefcase, and sat in the chair across from me like we were about to discuss a business deal. His voice came out too steady, too rehearsed. You weren't supposed to find those yet. We were going to tell you when you turned 18, give you time to process before you left for college. Tell me what? The question caught in my throat because part of me already knew the answer would destroy everything. My father pulled another envelope from his desk drawer, this one thicker, more official looking. Inside were documents I couldn't fully process at first. A death certificate for Michael James Brennan, died at age 9 from complications of leukemia. Medical records for a child who shared my birthday but different parents. Adoption papers with my name, but dates that made no sense because my parents never told me I was adopted. Then the final document, the one that made my stomach drop. A court order granting my parents legal custody of me, dated 7 years ago, signed by a judge whose name I recognized because he'd been at our house for Thanksgiving dinner last month. His name was Michael, my father said quietly, staring at the photographs instead of me. Our son. Your mother and I spent 9 years fighting his illness, traveling to specialists, trying every treatment available. We watched him suffer through chemotherapy, radiation, experimental protocols. Nothing worked. His voice cracked on the last word, but he pushed through. He died in our arms at Children's Hospital on a Tuesday morning in March. The bravest kid I've ever known. I wanted to ask why he was telling me this, why these photos existed, why I'd never known any of this before. But he kept talking, his words gaining momentum like he'd been holding them back for years. We tried to move forward, went to grief counseling, joined support groups for bereaved parents, did everything the therapists recommended. Nothing helped. The house felt empty. Every room reminded us of him. Your mother couldn't go into his bedroom for 6 months. I found her sleeping on the floor outside his door one night because she couldn't bear to be far from where he'd been. The death certificate was dated 7 years ago, almost exactly. The custody papers came 8 months later. I did the math slowly, forcing my brain to work through the implications. You adopted me to replace him. The words came out flat, emotionless, because I couldn't access the feelings yet. They were too massive, too overwhelming. Not replace. My father's correction came too quickly, too defensive. We wanted to honor his memory by giving another child the love we couldn't give him anymore. The social worker thought we'd be perfect candidates. Stable marriage, financial security, previous parenting experience. We met you at the group home and you were so similar to Michael. Same age range, same general features, same quiet demeanor. It felt like a sign. Same general features. The phrase hung in the air between us. My hair, I said slowly, touching the light brown strands that suddenly felt foreign. Michael had darker hair. You had lighter hair when we got you. Almost blonde, actually. He opened another drawer and pulled out more photographs, these ones clearly taken at a salon. A blonde child who was definitely me based on the facial features, gradually transforming through multiple appointments until the final image showed darker brown hair closer to the shade in Michael's photos. Your mother said it would help us transition, make the resemblance stronger so extended family wouldn't ask too many questions. The therapist agreed it could help with our healing process. But every photograph in that first envelope showed the dead child at different ages, including ages he never reached. Someone had created an imaginary timeline of Michael's life, fabricating what he might have looked like at 10, 11, 12, 13, and I was living that timeline, wearing clothes chosen to match those fabricated images, getting my hair styled to match a version of Michael that never existed. The photo albums in the living room? My voice sounded distant, disconnected from my body. All those pictures of me as a baby and toddler, digitally altered. He said it like it was normal, like every family forged childhood memories for adopted children. We wanted you to feel, like you'd always been ours. The therapist said creating a complete narrative would help you integrate into the family better. Avoid the trauma of feeling like an outsider. What's my real name? The question came out as a whisper, because I wasn't sure I wanted the answer. My father hesitated for the first time, his rehearsed explanations faltering. Your birth name was listed as Baby Boy Garrett in the state system. Your biological parents never formally named you before parental rights were terminated. We gave you Michael's name because we wanted you to have a real identity, a legacy to carry forward instead of being a case number. Baby Boy Garrett. The phrase echoed in my head as I stared at the death certificate, the adoption papers, the fabricated photographs spanning years of a childhood I never actually had. Does Mom know I found these? She's the one who organized them. His admission came with a heavy sigh. Your mother keeps detailed records of everything. She has journals comparing your development to Michael's at corresponding ages. She wanted to make sure we were giving you all the same opportunities Michael had, the same advantages, comparing them. I thought about my mother's constant documentation, her obsessive recording of every achievement, every milestone, every ordinary day, how she'd frame the photos in exact replicas of frames I'd seen in older pictures, maintaining consistent aesthetics across years that predated my arrival. The room at the end of the hall that you said was storage. The realization hit like ice water. That was his room, original Michael's room. We kept it exactly as he left it. Your mother couldn't bring herself to change anything. When you came to live with us, we set up a different room for you, made it feel like yours. But yes, Michael's room is still there, preserved. Your mother goes in there sometimes. I hear her late at night, talking to him, telling him about your accomplishments like she's giving him updates on a younger brother, talking to a dead child about the living replacement. The wrongness of it all pressed down on my chest, making it hard to breathe. How much of my life has been about recreating his? I looked at the most recent fabricated photo, the one showing imaginary 13-year-old Michael in what looked like a science fair setting. The robotics club I joined at age 10. Did he do robotics? He'd expressed interest before he got too sick to participate. Your mother wanted you to pursue what Michael never got the chance to finish. He gathered the photographs, organizing them back into neat piles, like that could somehow contain the chaos they represented. Everything we've done has been out of love. You have to understand that. We gave you a stable home, opportunities, education, everything a child could need. You gave me a dead boy's life. The anger finally broke through the numbness. You dyed my hair, fabricated my history, compared every single thing I did to a child who died before I even met you. You never wanted me. You wanted him back. That's not fair. His tone sharpened. We chose you specifically. Out of dozens of children in that facility, we picked you because you were special, because you deserved better than aging out of the system with nothing. Yes, you reminded us of Michael, but that doesn't mean we didn't love you for who you are. Who am I? I shouted the words, months or maybe years of unspoken confusion finally erupting. I don't even know my real birthday. I don't know where I came from or who my biological parents were. You erased everything I was before and replaced it with some fantasy version of your dead son. You even gave me his name like I'm supposed to just step into his life and pretend that's normal. My father stood up, his attorney persona taking over, the one he used in court when he needed to control the narrative. You're 16 years old, Michael, legally still a minor under our guardianship. These documents are private family records that you had no right to access without permission. The decisions your mother and I made were done in consultation with licensed therapists and social workers who all agreed our approach was in your best interest. My best interest? I held up the death certificate. Was it in my best interest to be named after a dead child? To be constantly compared to someone I could never actually be? To have my entire identity constructed around replacing someone else? You're being dramatic. His voice hardened. We've provided you with everything. Private school education, sports programs, music lessons, college fund already established. Do you have any idea how many foster kids would kill for the opportunities you've had? We didn't have to take you in. We could have stayed childless, let grief consume us. Instead, we opened our home and our hearts to a child the system had given up on. The cruelty of that last statement hung between us. The system had given up on. Like I should be grateful to be molded into someone else's shape, erased and rewritten, because my original self wasn't worth keeping. Where is she? Where's Mom right now? She had a support group meeting this afternoon. She should be home within the hour. He checked his watch like we were discussing dinner plans instead of my entire fabricated existence. I'm going to recommend we all sit down tonight with Dr. Lambert present. He's been counseling your mother and me since Michael's death. He can help explain our decisions and guide us through this conversation properly. Dr. Lambert knows about this? About the fake photos and the name and everything? The betrayal expanded outward, encompassing more people. The family therapist we'd seen for adjustment issues over the years had known all along that my entire history was manufactured. Dr. Lambert helped design the integration plan. He's a specialist in childhood trauma and grief counseling. Everything we did followed his professional recommendations. My father's voice took on the defensive tone he used when facing hostile witnesses. You need to understand that we were protecting you as much as ourselves. Children who come from neglectful backgrounds often struggle with identity formation. We gave you a stable identity, a clear family narrative, a sense of belonging. You gave me a lie. I was already moving toward the door, the photographs and documents clutched in my hands. An entire life built on lies. Michael, stop. He moved to block my path, but I sidestepped him. You can't leave this room with those documents. They're private family records. Private records about my fake identity. I pulled open the door. I think I have a right to know who I'm supposed to be. My father's face shifted into something colder, more calculating. If you walk out that door with those papers, if you do anything to disrupt your mother's mental health, I will have Dr. Lambert declare you a danger to yourself and others. Troubled teens from foster backgrounds can be committed for evaluation. It happens every day. The threat landed exactly as he'd intended, freezing me in place. You'd have me locked up to keep your secret? I'd protect your mother from another devastating loss. His voice softened, but the steel underneath remained. She's fragile, Michael. Finding out you know the truth, that you're rejecting everything we've built, it could break her completely. Is that what you want? To destroy the woman who's loved you as her own son for 7 years? Loved me as her own son. As if love could be built on erasure and manipulation. As if genuine affection could coexist with treating someone as a replacement part. I thought about all the times my mother had stared at me with that strange, distant look. The times she'd called me by my name but seemed to be seeing someone else. Every time she'd corrected my posture, my interests, my choices to match some invisible standard. She wasn't seeing me. She'd never seen me. She was looking through me at a ghost. I won't tell her I know. The words tasted like betrayal of myself, but survival instincts were stronger than pride. Not yet, but I'm keeping these. I held up the documents. And I'm going to find out who I really am. My father considered this, weighing his options. Finally, he nodded. Keep the copies. I have originals in a safety deposit box. But Michael, understand this. If you start making inquiries, contacting the foster system, trying to find your biological family, it will get back to us. The social worker who handled your adoption is a colleague. The judge who signed the orders is a law school classmate. Everyone involved has a vested interest in maintaining the current arrangement. Everyone involved. The conspiracy extended beyond just my parents, encompassing an entire network of professionals who'd helped them build this elaborate fiction. Why are you telling me this? Why not just let me believe I might have a chance? Because I want you to understand the reality of your situation. His tone turned almost gentle, which somehow made it worse. You're safe here. You have a future here. Out there, in the system, you're just another statistic. Your biological father is serving 20 years for armed robbery. Your mother lost custody of 3 children before you due to chronic neglect. No relatives came forward to claim you. We saved you from that. Gave you a name, an identity, a family. Don't throw that away because you're angry about the methodology. The worst part was how reasonable he made it sound. How easy it would be to just accept this new reality. Pretend I'd never found the photographs. Continue living the life they'd constructed. I was Michael Brennan, son of successful attorney David Brennan and his grief-stricken wife Rebecca. I had a college fund, good grades, a stable home. What did it matter if the foundation was built on someone else's grave? But it did matter. It mattered that somewhere in the gaps of my memory, there was a real person. A real origin story that belonged to me. It mattered that every photograph in our house was a lie, every family story a fiction. It mattered that I'd been sleeping in a bedroom decorated to avoid the aesthetic of a dead child's actual room, wearing clothes chosen to fulfill someone else's fantasy of who I should be. I left the study with the documents hidden under my shirt, my father's threat hanging over me like a suspended sentence. The house suddenly felt different, each familiar room revealing hidden meanings. The basement workshop where I'd learned carpentry, probably matching skills original Michael had shown interest in. The bookshelf filled with science fiction my mother insisted I read, likely matching books Michael had owned. The photo albums documenting a childhood I never actually had, my face digitally inserted into moments that occurred before I existed in this family. In my bedroom, I locked the door and spread the documents across my desk. The death certificate listed the hospital, St. Catherine's Medical Center downtown. My parents still lived in the same city where Michael had died, choosing to stay close to his memory. The house itself was probably selected for its similarity to their previous home, maintaining continuity for a ghost. The adoption papers showed more details upon closer examination. Baby boy Garrett, age 9, taken into state custody at age 7 following father's incarceration and mother's inability to maintain housing. 2 years in group homes before the Brennans applied for adoption. The biological mother's name was listed as Garrett, Nicole, last known address in a neighboring state. Father listed as Garrett, Derek, currently incarcerated. Medical history showing signs of early childhood neglect, but no permanent physical damage. I typed Nicole Garrett's name into my laptop, not expecting to find anything after so many years. Instead, a few results appeared. Court records showing termination of parental rights for multiple children. An obituary from 4 years ago. Nicole Garrett, age 36, died of complications from pneumonia, survived by no immediate family. The photograph accompanying the obituary showed a woman who looked exhausted and defeated, with features I could vaguely recognize in my own face. My biological mother was dead. That door was permanently closed. But Derek Garrett was still alive, still serving his sentence. I found the prison website, located his inmate number, read the details of his conviction. Armed robbery of a convenience store, assault with a deadly weapon, sentenced to 25 years with possibility of parole after 20. He'd been inside for 13 years already. The reality crashed over me. I'd been searching for some fantasy of reunion, some imagined better life I'd been stolen from. But the truth was grimmer. My biological parents had been disasters. Nicole had lost custody of multiple children, couldn't get clean or stable enough to keep any of us. Derek was violent, criminal, locked away. The Brennans had genuinely rescued me from that trajectory, given me opportunities I never would have had, but they'd also erased me, rebuilt me in the image of their dead son, used me as therapy, as a grief management tool, as a living memorial. The complexity of it all made my head spin. They'd saved me and destroyed me simultaneously. My phone buzzed with a text from my mother. Home in 15 minutes. Please start on homework. Love you. The casual normalcy of it made my skin crawl. She'd be walking through that door expecting her carefully constructed fantasy to still be intact, expecting me to play my role as resurrected Michael without knowing the script had been revealed. I couldn't do it. Couldn't sit through another dinner pretending everything was fine, watching her watch me with that distant analytical gaze, comparing every movement to what a dead 9-year-old might have done. But I also couldn't run, not without a plan, not without understanding the full scope of what I was up against. The sound of the garage door opening sent me into motion. I shoved the documents under my mattress and headed downstairs, forcing my face into neutral territory. My mother came through the door carrying grocery bags, her smile bright but strained in the way it always was after her support group. Hello, sweetie. Did you have a good afternoon? Fine. Dad got home early. I watched her face carefully, looking for any sign she knew about the confrontation in the study. Oh, wonderful. I got ingredients for your favorite dinner. Thought we could have a nice family meal tonight. She moved around the kitchen with practiced efficiency, unpacking groceries and starting preparations. Everything about her movements was precise, controlled, like she'd choreographed each gesture years ago and never deviated from the routine. My father appeared in the doorway, his expression carefully neutral. Rebecca, let me help with that. They exchanged a look, loaded with meaning I could now interpret. He was warning her, telling her without words that something had shifted. She caught it immediately, her hands stilling on the cutting board for just a moment before resuming their work. Actually, Michael, why don't you go finish your homework before dinner? Your father and I need to discuss something. Her voice remained light, but the dismissal was clear. I retreated to my room, pressing my ear against the door once it was closed. Their voices drifted up from the kitchen, angry whispers that occasionally spiked into something louder before being forcibly controlled. I caught fragments. He found them. You were supposed to keep those locked. We need to call Dr. Lambert. He can't know about Nicole being dead. He can't know about Nicole being dead. They'd known my biological mother had died, known I had no living parent to return to, known the fantasy of reunion was impossible. They'd hidden that from me deliberately, let me imagine possibilities that didn't exist. The betrayal cut deeper with each revelation. Dinner was a surreal performance. My mother served the meal she'd claimed was my favorite, but I couldn't remember ever expressing a preference for pot roast. Maybe it had been Michael's favorite. Maybe everything I thought I liked was actually just programming, preferences implanted to match the template they'd designed. We ate in near silence, my parents exchanging loaded glances while I pushed food around my plate. Your father tells me you found some old photographs today. My mother's voice was carefully casual. That must have been confusing for you. Confusing. As if stumbling onto evidence that my entire existence was fabricated could be summed up in such a mild word. It was surprising. We should have told you sooner. She reached across the table to pat my hand, her touch cold and clinical. But we were waiting for the right time, when you were mature enough to understand the complexity of the situation. The complexity of being a replacement child? The words came out sharper than I'd intended. Her hand withdrew, her expression tightening. That's not what you are. That's never been what this was about. We welcomed you into our family because we had love to give, and you needed a home. The fact that you reminded us of Michael was simply a comfort during a difficult time. You dyed my hair to look more like him. I couldn't let the lies continue unchallenged. You created fake photos showing him at ages he never reached, and then used them as a template for how I should look. That's not comfort. That's replacement. My father's fork clinked against his plate. Michael, your mother has been through unimaginable loss. We both have. Nothing we've done was intended to hurt you. Everything was done to heal our family. I'm not part of your family. The realization solidified as I spoke it. I'm a prop in your grief therapy. You never wanted a second child. You wanted the first one back. My mother stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. I have loved you every single day since you came into our home. I've given you everything I would have given my own son. How dare you throw that in my face? Your own son is dead. I stood too, matching her energy. I'm not him. I'll never be him. And you've spent 7 years trying to force me into his shape instead of letting me be whoever I actually am. You're being cruel and ungrateful. Her voice rose, cracking on the edges. We saved you from a terrible situation. Your biological parents were disasters who couldn't care for you properly. We gave you stability, opportunities they never could have provided. At least they gave me my own name. I headed for the stairs, done with the performance. At least they wouldn't have pretended I was someone I'm not. My mother's voice followed me up the stairs, higher and more desperate. Where do you think you're going? We're not finished discussing this. Yes, we are. I slammed my bedroom door, hearing her footsteps on the stairs, my father's lower voice trying to calm her down. Their argument continued in the hallway, muffled through the door but clearly intense. I pulled out the documents again, studying the prison information for Derek Garrett, wondering if reaching out to a violent criminal was somehow better than staying in this house of lies. The fighting downstairs went on for over an hour before finally quieting. I heard my mother's bedroom door close, then silence. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "This is Dr. Lambert. Your parents have briefed me on the situation. I'd like to schedule a session with you tomorrow after school. Please confirm you'll attend." The message felt less like an invitation and more like a summons. I typed back, "I'll be there." No point refusing when they'd just use my resistance as evidence of instability. Better to understand exactly what I was dealing with before making any major moves. Sleep didn't come that night. I lay in bed thinking about Derek Garrett, about Nicole Garrett's obituary photo, wondering what my life might have looked like if they'd been capable parents, if the system had helped them instead of just taking me away, if the Brennans hadn't swept in with their money and connections and grief-fueled mission to recreate their lost son. Would I be in prison myself by now, dead like Nicole, or maybe stronger, more resilient, more authentically myself? 7 years of conditioning had shaped me. I'd been Michael Brennan longer than I'd been baby boy Garrett. Maybe there was no real me left to discover under all the layers they'd built. The next morning, my mother stayed in her room. My father drove me to school in silence, pulling up to the curb without the usual small talk about classes or sports. "Dr. Lambert's office, at 4 o'clock. Don't be late." His tone made it clear this wasn't optional. School dragged by in a blur of meaningless classes and social interactions that felt increasingly fake. My best friend Austin asked if I was okay, noticed I seemed distracted. How could I explain that I'd discovered I was living a lie? That every shared memory we had was tainted by the knowledge that I didn't even know my real birthday? I smiled and said I was fine, kept the mask in place like I'd learned to do so well. Dr. Lambert's office was in a professional building downtown, all glass and modern architecture designed to project success and stability. The waiting room displayed certificates and awards, evidence of his credentials in childhood psychology and grief counseling. The receptionist greeted me by name, another reminder of how interconnected this whole system was. Dr. Lambert himself was older than I'd expected, maybe late 50s, with silver hair and sharp eyes that probably missed nothing. He shook my hand and gestured me into his office, closing the door before settling into his leather chair. "Michael, thank you for coming. I know this must be a difficult time. Everyone keeps calling me that." I stayed standing despite his gesture toward the couch. "Michael, but that's not my name, is it? It's a dead boy's name. Names are complicated." He opened a notebook, pen ready. "The identity we carry isn't always the one we're born with. Many adopted children struggle with questions of authenticity and belonging. What you're feeling is completely normal. Is it normal to discover your entire childhood was fabricated?" I pulled out my phone, showing him the obituary for Nicole Garrett. "Is it normal for parents to hide the fact that your biological mother is dead, so you can't even meet her if you wanted to?" His expression flickered, just for a moment, before the professional mask returned. "Where did you find that?" "Online. Took about 5 minutes." I watched him carefully. "How long have you known she was dead?" "About Nicole?" Dr. Lambert set down his pen, folding his hands in his lap. "Your biological mother's death is unfortunate, but it doesn't change the legal reality of your situation. The adoption was finalized years ago with full consideration of all factors. The courts determined that remaining with the Brennans was in your best interest." "The courts? Or the judge who went to law school with my father?" I challenged. "How much of this was actually about my best interest versus my parents' grief management? You're angry, and that's understandable." His voice remained steady, therapeutic. "But you need to understand the complexity of what your parents have been through. Losing a child is perhaps the most devastating experience any human can endure. The decisions they made regarding your adoption and integration into their family were guided by professional recommendations, including mine. You told them to dye my hair, to fake my childhood photos, to name me after their dead son. Each accusation landed flat, factual. You designed this whole thing. I advised them on creating a stable, coherent family narrative that would help all of you heal." He leaned forward, his tone earnest. "You were a deeply traumatized child when they adopted you. 2 years in group homes, witness to your father's violence and your mother's neglect, lacking consistent caregiving or attachment figures. The structure the Brennans provided, the clear identity and sense of belonging, gave you stability you desperately needed. By erasing who I was." My voice came out quieter than intended. "You helped them erase me. We helped you become someone stronger." He stood, moving to a filing cabinet and pulling out a thick folder. "These are your intake evaluations from age 9. You were developmentally delayed, emotionally withdrawn, showing signs of severe attachment disorder. The prognosis was poor, but look at you now. Honor student, varsity athlete, preparing for college. The intervention worked." I took the folder, flipping through pages of evaluations and notes and treatment plans. The child described in these documents did sound broken, damaged beyond easy repair. But that child had a name, a history, parents who'd existed even if they'd failed him. That child deserved to exist, to be remembered, to matter even if he was difficult and hurt and scared. "Nicole Garrett is dead." I held up my phone again. "But Derek Garrett is still alive. He's in prison, but he's alive. I could contact him if I wanted to." Dr. Lambert's expression hardened slightly. "Derek Garrett is a violent criminal who endangered his own children through his actions. He lost his parental rights permanently. Contacting him would accomplish nothing except potentially exposing you to a dangerous influence. Did anyone ask me? The question hung between us. Did anyone think maybe I deserved to know my biological father existed, even if he's in prison? You were a child. Children don't always know what's best for them. He returned to his chair, picking up his pen again. That's why we have parents, therapists, social workers, judges, people who can make objective decisions based on facts rather than emotions. Objective. I laughed without humor. Nothing about this has been objective. My parents wanted a replacement son. You wanted to prove your therapy method worked. The social worker wanted to close a difficult case. The judge wanted to help his law school buddy. Everyone got what they wanted except the person who actually mattered. Me. Dr. Lambert made a note in his book. This reaction is expected. Adopted children often fantasize about their biological parents. Imagine scenarios where they were wanted and loved. It's a defense mechanism against feelings of abandonment. But you need to understand that reality rarely matches those fantasies. Stop psychoanalyzing me. I stood up. I'm not one of your case studies. I'm a person who deserves to know the truth about where I came from. The truth is that you came from an unstable situation and were given a chance at a better life. His voice took on a harder edge. Your parents love you. They've invested enormous resources into your well-being. Walking away from that to chase a fantasy of connection with a violent criminal would be self-destructive. He's still my biological father. I moved toward the door. And I have a right to make contact if I want to. If you leave this office, if you pursue contact with Derek Garrett, I'll have no choice but to recommend immediate intervention. Dr. Lambert's threat was delivered calmly, clinically. Teenagers exhibiting self-destructive behavior and rejection of their support systems often require residential treatment for their own safety. The same judge who signed your adoption papers can sign commitment papers just as easily. The walls seemed to close in. Every authority figure in my life was connected, cooperating, maintaining the same narrative. My father had been right. There was no way out that didn't involve them tracking me, stopping me, potentially having me institutionalized to preserve their careful construction. I'll stay away from him. The lie tasted bitter. I won't contact Derek Garrett. Dr. Lambert studied me for a long moment before nodding. Good. That's a mature decision. We'll meet again next week to continue processing these feelings in a healthy way. He stood, opening the door for me. Your parents are waiting in the lobby. They both stood as I emerged, my mother's eyes red from crying, my father's expression grim. We walked to the car in silence. Once inside, my mother turned in her seat to face me. Dr. Lambert said you've agreed to continue therapy and maintain no contact with your biological father. I want to hear it from you. I won't contact him. The words came out mechanical, empty. Good. My mother's relief was visible, her shoulders dropping. Because Michael, sweetheart, you have to understand. That man is dangerous. He hurt people, hurt your mother, hurt you. We protected you from that. We gave you a life he never could have provided. I know. I looked out the window, watching the city pass by. I understand. We'll get through this. My father started the engine. Families face challenges. What matters is that we face them together, as if we were actually a family instead of a carefully maintained fiction. But arguing was pointless. They held all the power, legal, financial, social. I was 16, still a minor, trapped in their version of reality until I could find a way out. That night, I created a fake email account using a computer at the library after school, found the prison's inmate communication system, the procedures for establishing contact with prisoners. Derek Garrett could receive emails through the system, though they'd be monitored by prison staff. I composed a message, carefully, revealing nothing that could get back to the Brennans. My name is Michael. I think you might be my biological father. I was taken into state custody when I was 7 years old and adopted. I don't know if you remember having a son, but I found records showing your name on my original birth documentation. I'm not asking for anything. I just want to know if you're actually my father, and if you are, maybe you could tell me something about who I was before I was adopted. Anything you remember would help me understand where I came from. I stared at that message for an hour, my finger hovering over the send button, but Dr. Lambert's threat echoed in my mind. They'd be watching for exactly this. Any contact would trigger immediate consequences, but this email was from a fake account, sent from a public library computer. There was no way to trace it back to me unless Derek himself reported it, and why would he? I hit send before I could overthink it more. The message disappeared into the system, probably wouldn't be delivered for days given how prison communications worked. Maybe Derek wouldn't respond at all. Maybe he didn't remember having a son. Maybe this was a dead end, like everything else. The next few weeks passed in carefully maintained normalcy. I went to school, came home, did homework, attended dinners where we all pretended everything was fine. My mother watched me constantly, tracking my movements with barely concealed anxiety. My father checked my phone and computer every night, not finding anything because I'd been careful to use only public systems. Dr. Lambert's weekly sessions became another performance where I said the right things, showed appropriate progress toward accepting my situation, but every few days, I'd return to the library to check that fake email account. Nothing for 2 weeks. Then finally, a response came through. The message was short, the writing rough like someone unused to typing. Yeah, I remember you. You were about 6 or 7 last time I saw you before they locked me up. Your mom couldn't take care of you right and I was too messed up to help. They took you and your sisters away. Don't know what happened to them either. You got adopted, that's probably better than foster care. Don't really know what to tell you about before. We moved around a lot. Your mom was using pretty bad. I was doing stupid shit trying to get money. Wasn't a good situation for kids. Sorry you got caught up in that. Don't know what else you want to know. Prison gives me computer time once a week so I can write back if you got questions. I read the message 3 times, trying to extract meaning from the sparse words. Your sisters. I had sisters. Biological siblings I'd never known existed. The Brennans had never mentioned them, never hinted that I'd come from a larger family. They'd presented my adoption as saving one lone child from disaster, not extracting me from siblings who'd been scattered through the system. I typed back, I have sisters? How many? What are their names? Do you know what happened to them? The response came a week later. 3 girls, older than you. Ashley was the oldest, maybe 10 or 11 when they took you all. Then Brianna and Crystal. They were closer to your age. State split you up, I think. Different foster homes. Never found out where they went. Your mom kept trying to get you back, but she couldn't stay clean long enough. Died few years ago from what I heard. Sorry, kid. That's all I know. 3 sisters. Ashley, Brianna, Crystal. Names that meant nothing to me but represented people who shared my blood, my history, my origins. They were out there somewhere. Probably adopted like me. Probably with fabricated identities and altered childhoods. Or maybe they'd aged out of foster care, ended up on their own at 18 with nothing. The possibilities spiraled through my mind. Finding them became an obsession. I spent hours at the library researching foster care records, adoption databases, social media profiles. Ashley Garrett would be in her early 20s now, old enough to have established her own digital presence. Brianna and Crystal would be teenagers like me, harder to track, but someone out there might know something. The break came from an unexpected source. I found a Reddit thread about foster care reunification, people searching for biological siblings they'd been separated from. One post from 3 months ago caught my attention. Looking for biological brother taken into custody in 2014, last name Garrett, would be about 16 now. 3 sisters trying to reconnect. I created a throwaway account and sent a direct message. I think you might be looking for me. Adopted at age 9, last name Garrett originally. Currently living under different name. Please tell me more about who you are. The response came within an hour. Holy shit, we've been searching for you for 2 years. I'm Ashley. I aged out of foster care and started looking for everyone as soon as I turned 18. Found Brianna and Crystal last year. They were adopted by different families but both got emancipated when they found out about me. We've been trying to track you down, but adoption records are sealed. Where are you? Are you safe? Safe. The question felt loaded. Was I safe living with people who'd erased my identity and threatened to institutionalize me if I deviated from their script? Physically safe, yes. Emotionally? Psychologically? That was more complicated. I typed carefully. I'm physically safe. Adopted by family that lost their son. They named me after him. It's complicated. I'm still a minor, so I can't just leave. But I want to meet you. All of you. I want to know who I was before. Ashley's response was immediate. We can help. I work with a foster care advocacy organization now. We help teens in difficult adoption situations. Can you meet somewhere? Coffee shop? Library? Somewhere public? The risk was enormous. My parents were monitoring everything. Dr. Lambert had made clear the consequences of deviating from their plan. But the possibility of meeting my biological sisters, of connecting with people who actually knew who I'd been, was too compelling to ignore. Thursday afternoon. City Library main branch. I'll be in the reference section at 4 p.m. I have dark brown hair, probably lighter than it used to be. I'll be wearing a blue jacket. Thursday came slowly. I went through the motions at school, mechanical and distracted. Told my parents I had a study group for my history project, would be at the library until 6. My father barely looked up from his phone. My mother nodded absently. They'd relaxed their surveillance slightly as Dr. Lambert reported my progress toward acceptance. I was playing the role well enough to earn some freedom. The library was crowded with after-school students. I stationed myself in the reference section, pretending to research for a paper, my eyes tracking every person who entered. At exactly 4 o'clock, 3 young women walked in together, scanning the room with obvious purpose. The oldest was mid-20s, with dark hair and sharp features that reminded me of Nicole Garrett's obituary photo. The other 2 were younger, maybe 19 and 18, with the same general build and coloring. They spotted me at the same time I recognized them. The oldest one, Ashley, moved forward first, her expression a mix of hope and caution. Michael? She used my adopted name, the only one she'd known to search for. Actually, they named me Michael Brennan. But yeah, I think I'm your brother. Standing up felt surreal, like I was stepping out of one life into another. Ashley closed the distance and pulled me into a hug before I could process what was happening. She was shaking, or maybe I was, or maybe both of us. We thought you were gone forever. The state wouldn't tell us anything. They said you were in a good placement and it was better not to disrupt your new family. The other 2 sisters hung back, uncertain. Ashley released me and gestured to them. This is Brianna and Crystal. They were too young to remember much before foster care, but they remember you. Brianna, the middle sister, stepped forward. You used to share a bedroom with us at the last apartment. You'd wake up crying from nightmares and I'd tell you stories until you fell back asleep. I don't know if you remember any of that. I didn't. My earliest clear memories started around age 8, after the adoption. Everything before was fragments and blurs, possibly suppressed, possibly just normal childhood amnesia. I don't remember much from before. They told me I was traumatized, that forgetting was my brain protecting itself. That's what they told me too. Crystal, the youngest, spoke quietly, but I started recovering memories when I got away from my adoptive family. Not good memories, really, but real ones. Things that actually happened instead of the stories they made up. Ashley pulled out her phone, showing me photos. Old pictures from before foster care, actual documented evidence of our shared childhood. A birthday party at a rundown apartment. 4 children crowded around a grocery store cake. A Christmas morning with dollar store gifts. Nicole Garrett in the background of several photos, looking young and tired but smiling. I kept these hidden through foster care, through adoption, through everything. Ashley's voice was thick with emotion. They're the only proof we existed before the system split us up. I studied the photos, trying to find myself in the small blonde child who appeared in several images. That was me. That was actually me, before the hair dye and the name change and the fabricated history. Can I have copies of these? I'll send you everything. Ashley pulled out a laptop, transferring files immediately. Photos, birth certificates, medical records from when we were together, everything I've managed to gather. You deserve to know who you were. We spent 2 hours in that library, my sisters filling in gaps with stories and memories and fragments of a shared history I'd been denied. How Derek had been arrested during a robbery gone wrong, how Nicole had tried to keep them together but her addiction made it impossible, how the state had determined removing all 4 children was the only safe option, how they'd been split up within weeks, Ashley to one foster home, Brianna and Crystal to another, me to a third. We stayed in contact as much as we could, Brianna explained. Letters through the social workers, supervised visits sometimes, but you disappeared after the Brennans adopted you. They cut off all communication with the system. We couldn't find you. They wanted me to forget everything. I thought about the fabricated photo albums, the deleted past. They wanted me to believe I'd always been their son. Ashley's expression darkened. What they did is called identity erasure. It's a form of psychological abuse. You have grounds for emancipation if you want to pursue it. I'm 16. They've made it clear they'll have me institutionalized if I try to leave. I explained the network of connected professionals, the threats from Dr. Lambert, the judge who played golf with my father. We can help with that. Ashley pulled out a business card. This is my supervisor at the foster care advocacy organization. She's helped dozens of teens escape abusive adoption situations. It's not easy, but it's possible. The card read, Vanessa Chen, Teen Advocacy Center, a lifeline offered by people who actually understood what I was facing. They monitor my phone and computer. I've been using library systems to avoid detection. Smart. Crystal handed me a prepaid phone, still in the package. Burner phone. They can't track it. Save our numbers. Text us anytime. We're not disappearing again. The weight of that phone in my hand felt like possibility, like maybe escape was actually achievable. Thank you for finding me, for not giving up. You're our brother. Ashley's voice was firm. We protect each other. That's what family actually means, not the fake shit they've been selling you. I left the library with the burner phone hidden in my backpack, the photos loaded onto a flash drive buried in my pocket, and contact information for the Teen Advocacy Center memorized. For the first time since finding those photographs in my father's study, I felt like I had allies, real support from people who wanted me to be myself instead of a replacement for someone else. That night at dinner, I played the role perfectly, discussed my history project, mentioned the study group had been productive, showed appropriate interest in my parents' days. My mother seemed relaxed, commenting on how much better I seemed lately. My father nodded approvingly. Dr. Lambert's therapy was working exactly as intended, helping me accept my place in their carefully constructed fiction. But in my room after they'd gone to bed, I powered up the burner phone and texted Ashley. I want to pursue emancipation. I want out of here. What do I need to do? Her response came within minutes. Contact Vanessa Chen tomorrow. She'll start building your case. Document everything, every time they manipulate you or threaten you or compare you to Michael. Evidence is key. You can do this. We're with you. The next morning, I called the Teen Advocacy Center from a payphone near school. Vanessa Chen answered immediately, her voice professional but warm. When I explained my situation, the fabricated identity, the threats, the network of connected professionals maintaining the fiction, she listened without interrupting. What you're describing is more common than you'd think, she said when I finished. Grieving parents who adopt as a form of therapy, professionals who enable it because they believe they're helping. But it's still abuse, and you have rights. She scheduled a meeting for that afternoon, gave me the address, told me to bring any documentation I had. I met her at a small office across town, somewhere my parents would never think to look. Vanessa was younger than I expected, maybe early 30s, with an intensity that suggested she took her work seriously. She reviewed everything I'd brought, photos of the documents from my father's study, screenshots of the fabricated childhood photos, the obituary for Nicole Garrett, records of my adoption. This is solid evidence of identity manipulation, she said after reviewing everything, combined with testimony from your biological sisters about the separation and your right to maintain those relationships. We have grounds for petition. But Michael, you need to understand this will get ugly. Your parents will fight back hard. I know. I thought about my father's threats, my mother's fragility. But I can't keep living like this. I'm not their son. I'm not Michael Brennan. I need to be whoever I actually am. Vanessa nodded slowly. Then let's build your case. Over the next month, I documented everything. Every time my mother compared me to original Michael. Every time my father threatened consequences if I deviated from their plan. Every session with Dr. Lambert where he reinforced their narrative. I recorded conversations on the burner phone, took photos of Michael's preserved bedroom, collected evidence of the systematic erasure of my original identity. Meanwhile, Vanessa connected me with an independent psychologist who specialized in adoption trauma. Dr. Sarah Kim conducted extensive evaluations, documenting the psychological impact of what the Brennans had done. The results showed severe identity dissociation, complex trauma from sustained emotional manipulation, anxiety and depression stemming from the constant pressure to be someone I wasn't. Your psychological profile is consistent with victims of long-term identity abuse, Dr. Kim explained during one session. The forced assimilation into another child's life, the erasure of your biological family, the threats of institutionalization if you resist, all of it has caused measurable harm to your mental health and development. Ashley, Brianna, and Crystal provided statements about our shared history, about being forcibly separated, about their attempts to maintain contact that were blocked by the Brennans. The advocacy organization compiled similar cases, showing a pattern of grieving parents using adoption as grief therapy at the expense of the children they adopted. My 17th birthday approached, though I still didn't know if the date we celebrated was actually correct. My mother started planning the party weeks in advance, inviting extended family and friends, ordering a custom cake, arranging everything to match the imagined 17th birthday original Michael would have had if he'd lived. Mom, I really don't want a big party this year. I tried to keep my voice reasonable. Maybe just dinner with you and Dad? Her face fell, disappointment sharp in her eyes. But Michael, your 17th is important. I've already sent invitations. Everyone's expecting to celebrate with you. Everyone meaning the network of people complicit in maintaining the fiction. Extended family who'd accepted the fabricated childhood without question. Friends of my parents who'd watched me grow into Michael's image with approval. The whole supporting cast of this sustained delusion. Please, I tried again. I'd really rather keep it small. We'll discuss it later. Her tone said the discussion was over. My preference is irrelevant. She'd already decided what Michael's 17th birthday should look like, had probably been planning it since original Michael died, imagining this milestone her son would never reach. The party happened exactly as she'd planned. 50 people crowding our house, everyone bringing gifts, making toasts about what a fine young man I'd become. My mother gave a speech about how proud she was, how blessed she felt to have me as her son, how every day with me was a gift. Her eyes welled with tears as she spoke, genuine emotion breaking through her carefully maintained composure. But she wasn't crying for me. She was crying for Michael, for the son who should have been celebrating this birthday, for the life cut short and impossibly resurrected in my unwilling body. Every word of love she spoke was directed at a ghost. I was just the medium through which she communicated with the dead. Thank you all for coming. I managed the expected speech, smiled for photographs that would be added to the albums of falsified memories, cut the cake decorated to match original Michael's childhood aesthetic. The performance was exhausting. Later, after everyone left, I sat in my room looking at the gifts piled on my desk. Sports equipment matching what Michael had used, books from series he'd been reading, clothes in styles my mother decided he would have liked at 17, nothing chosen for me, for who I actually was or wanted to be. My burner phone buzzed with a text from Vanessa. Petition filed today. Court date set for 3 weeks. Are you ready? Was I ready? Ready to face my parents in court, to expose the elaborate construction they'd built, to shatter my mother's carefully maintained coping mechanism? Ready to possibly lose and be trapped even more tightly under their control, but also ready to maybe, finally, meet my sisters properly, to learn who I'd been before the erasure, to reclaim a name and identity that belonged to me instead of a dead child. Yes, I typed back. I'm ready. The next morning at breakfast, my father's phone rang. He answered, his expression shifting from casual to furious within seconds. I see. Thank you for the notification. He ended the call and turned to me, his eyes cold. You filed an emancipation petition. You've been working with that advocacy organization behind our backs. My mother's coffee cup clattered against the table. What? Michael, tell me that's not true. It's true. No point lying now. I want emancipation. I want to reconnect with my biological sisters. I want to know who I really am. Your sisters? My mother's voice rose, hysterical. Those people are strangers. We're your family. We're the ones who saved you, raised you, loved you. You loved Michael. You raised Michael. I'm not him. I stood, needing distance from their reactions. I'll never be him no matter how hard you try to force me into his shape. My father stood too, his lawyer persona fully engaged. You're making a serious mistake. That petition will be dismissed within days. Judge Phillips knows us, trusts us. He'll see this as teenage rebellion, nothing more. Judge Phillips might want to see the evidence I have. I pulled out my phone, showing them the documentation Dr. Kim had compiled. Independent psychological evaluation showing significant emotional harm from sustained identity manipulation. Expert testimony ready to present. Witness statements from my biological sisters about your blocking their attempts at contact. My mother grabbed the phone from my hand, scrolling through the files, her face draining of color. You've been in therapy without our knowledge? Discussing our private family matters with strangers? Meeting with those girls behind our backs? Discussing how you erased my identity and forced me to play a dead child's role for 7 years? The words came out harsh, unfiltered. How you dyed my hair, fabricated my history, named me after someone I could never be? That's what I've been discussing with people who actually want to help me. Everything we did was out of love. Her voice broke. We loved you so much we wanted to give you everything Michael never got to have. You loved Michael. You used me as a replacement part. I grabbed my backpack, heading for the door. There's a difference. My father's expression hardened into something calculating. You think you can win this? You think some non-profit lawyer and a sympathetic psychologist are a match for our resources? I'll bury this petition under so much litigation you'll be 18 before it sees a courtroom. And then you'll be free to make your own mistakes, throw away your future for a fantasy reunion with people who share your DNA, but nothing else. I'm willing to find out. I opened the door. See you in court. The 3 weeks before the hearing were brutal. My parents hired their own psychologist who diagnosed me with reactive attachment disorder, an oppositional defiant disorder, claiming I was incapable of forming genuine bonds and would destroy any family I joined. They submitted records of my behavioral issues over the years, minor teenage rebellions reframed as evidence of instability. Dr. Lambert filed a report stating that disrupting the current family structure would cause catastrophic psychological harm, that I needed continued structure and guidance through adolescence. The social worker who'd handled my original adoption filed an affidavit supporting the Brennans, claiming they'd provided exemplary care. But Vanessa and her team weren't passive. They compiled cases of other adoptees who'd suffered identity manipulation. They documented the Brennans' coordinated approach with Dr. Lambert, showing how he'd profited from implementing his controversial therapeutic model. They tracked down teachers and coaches who could testify about my disconnection, my lack of genuine engagement with activities I'd supposedly chosen, but were really just extensions of Michael's interrupted interests. Most importantly, my sisters came forward with their own petitions to establish contact. Ashley submitted documentation of her attempts to find me over the years, all blocked by sealed adoption records and the Brennans' refusal to maintain any connection to my biological family. Brianna and Crystal testified about the trauma of family separation, the psychological damage of having siblings erased from their lives. The morning of the hearing, I dressed in clothes I'd chosen myself, not matching any template from Michael's imagined future. Vanessa met me at the courthouse with Dr. Kim and 2 other advocates. My parents arrived with Dr. Lambert and a team of lawyers that probably cost more per hour than most people earned in a week. And there, near the courtroom entrance, stood Ashley, Brianna, and Crystal, my real sisters, ready to fight for me. Ashley stepped forward as I approached. Whatever happens in there, we're not leaving you again. You're stuck with us now. The courtroom was smaller than I'd expected from TV dramas. Judge Phillips sat behind the bench looking skeptical and tired. He'd reviewed the preliminary filings, knew the complexity of the case. This is highly irregular. He opened the hearing with that statement. We have an adopted minor seeking emancipation and reconnection with biological siblings. Mr. Brennan, or Mr. Garrett if you prefer, why don't you explain in your own words why you believe this change is necessary? I stood, my voice steadier than I felt. Because for 7 years, I've been living as a replacement for my adoptive parents' deceased son. They changed my appearance, fabricated my history, and systematically erased my original identity in an attempt to resurrect a child they lost. I understand they acted from grief, but that doesn't make what they did right or healthy for me. I have biological sisters who've been searching for me, and I deserve the chance to know them and know who I was before. Those are serious allegations. Judge Phillips looked at my parents. Mr. and Mrs. Brennan, how do you respond? My father stood, his courtroom presence commanding. Your Honor, our son is experiencing a crisis typical of adopted teenagers. He's romanticizing his biological family, imagining a perfect reunion that will solve all his adolescent identity struggles. The truth is, we provided a stable, loving home for a deeply traumatized child from a violent, neglectful background. We gave him structure, education, opportunities. Yes, we honored our deceased son's memory by giving this child his name, but that was meant as a tribute, ensuring Michael's legacy continued. By dyeing his hair and creating falsified childhood photographs, Vanessa stood, her voice sharp. Your Honor, I'd like to submit evidence compiled by Dr. Kim showing sustained psychological damage from what amounts to identity theft. This young man wasn't adopted to be himself. He was adopted to be a recreation of someone else, with his biological family systematically cut off to maintain that fiction. The next 4 hours were a methodical presentation of evidence from both sides. Dr. Kim testified about identity fragmentation and complex trauma. Dr. Lambert countered with claims about necessary therapeutic interventions for attachment-disordered children. Ashley testified about her search for me, the blocked attempts at contact. The original social worker defended her decision to approve the adoption and support cutting ties with my biological family. Through it all, I sat at the table watching my life be dissected by professionals who'd never asked what I actually wanted. The one moment that cut through the procedural noise came when Judge Phillips addressed me directly. You're 17 now. old enough to have your preferences weighted heavily in custody decisions. If I granted this petition, you understand you'd be leaving behind significant resources? The school, the opportunities, the college fund your adoptive parents have established? You'd essentially be starting over. I understand. I stood again, needing him to really hear this. But I'd also be getting my real identity back. My real name, my real history, my real family. I'd stop being a ghost and start being a person. That's worth any material loss. The judge made his decision after a brief recess. I find the evidence of psychological manipulation compelling and concerning. While the Brennans clearly believed they were acting in the child's best interest, the therapeutic approach employed resulted in documented harm. At 17, the minor is mature enough to have significant input into his placement and family connections. He paused, looking at my sisters. I'm granting supervised emancipation with the minor residing with his adult biological sister Ashley Garrett, pending a 6-month evaluation. Additionally, I'm ordering the Brennans to provide all original documentation regarding the minor's biological family and to cease any attempts to block contact with his biological siblings. My mother's sob echoed through the courtroom. My father sat rigid, already calculating appeals. Ashley's relief was visible, tears streaming down her face. Furthermore, Judge Phillips continued, I'm ordering a review of Dr. Lambert's practices regarding identity manipulation in adoption cases. The minor is entitled to resume use of his birth name if he chooses, and the court recognizes the psychological harm caused by the sustained identity erasure. The gavel came down. Just like that, 7 years of carefully constructed fiction legally dismantled. I was no longer Michael Brennan, replacement son. I was going home to become whoever I'd been meant to be. Ashley drove us to her apartment that night in a car that had seen better days, but ran reliably. Brianna and Crystal came too, all of us together for the first time in over a decade. The apartment was small, crowded with 4 people, but it felt more like home than the Brennan house ever had. We'll figure out the logistics, Ashley said as we sat around her kitchen table. You can share the second bedroom with Crystal until we find a bigger place. Brianna lives nearby. We'll make it work. Make it work. The concept felt revolutionary after years of having everything meticulously planned and controlled. Thank you for fighting for me, for not giving up. You're our brother, Brianna said firmly. That actually means something. We talked late into the night, filling in gaps with stories and memories. Ashley pulled out more old photographs, showing me fragments of a childhood I couldn't remember but had actually lived. A small blonde boy playing in a rundown apartment, birthday parties with dollar store decorations, a family that had been broken but had been real. What do you want us to call you? Crystal asked eventually. Michael? Or your birth name? Or something else? I thought about it, rolling the names around in my mind. Michael belonged to a dead child, had never actually been mine. But baby boy Garrett felt like a placeholder, not a real identity either. What did you guys call me? Before foster care? Mickey, Ashley said softly. We called you Mickey because Michael was too formal for a little kid. Mickey. The name resonated in a way nothing else had, fitting into a space I'd always known was wrong. Mickey Garrett. I tested it out loud. Yeah, that's who I am. Ashley reached across the table, taking my hand. Welcome home, Mickey. 3 months later, I'm settling into a life that actually belongs to me. I go by Mickey Garrett now, changed it legally as soon as I turned 18 last month. The Brennans fought the name change petition, but ultimately withdrew their objection when their lawyer advised them it would expose them to further scrutiny. I'm finishing high school at a different district, taking classes I actually chose instead of ones selected to match Michael's interrupted interests. I'm terrible at robotics, but decent at writing. I hate baseball, but like running. Small discoveries about who I actually am beneath the layers they built. My relationship with Ashley, Brianna, and Crystal grows stronger every day. We're figuring out how to be siblings after a decade apart, learning each other's quirks and histories. It's not perfect or easy, but it's real. They don't expect me to be anyone except whoever I am in this moment. I think about the Brennans sometimes. My mother sends letters I don't open, apologies and explanations I'm not ready to hear. My father made one attempt at legal action to force visitation rights but withdrew when his own reputation became threatened by the publicity. They lost a son twice, and I feel some sadness about that, but I can't carry their grief anymore. Dr. Lambert lost his license after a board investigation revealed multiple cases of identity manipulation in his treatment approach. The judge who signed my adoption papers faces ethics reviews. Small systemic changes sparked by one case, preventing future children from being erased the way I was. I still don't remember much from before age 8. Dr. Kim says those memories might never fully return, and that's okay. I don't need to remember everything that happened to know who I am now. Mickey Garrett, brother of Ashley, Brianna, and Crystal, survivor of identity erasure, someone still figuring out who he wants to be, but finally free to discover it. That's the best justice I could create. Not revenge, but reclamation. Not punishment, but freedom. The chance to stop being a ghost and start being real.